The biggest concerns about the Pelicans in the playoffs showed up in their loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'll tell you what all of those were and what the Pelicans can do to fix them in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Thursday, we are going to talk about the Pelicans' loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, 116-95. It took me a little while to plan this show out because I really wanted to nail this episode because I think this loss was really telling and there's some big takeaways for the Pelicans as they enter the final now 17 games of the regular season. So we're going to look at the three biggest reasons they lost this game. And these, I think, are flaws that are present in the team that might rear their head in the playoffs. So they need to fix these or at least address them because one of them I don't think they can fix is they need to do this sooner rather than later. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Become an everyday. Listen Monday through Friday. So let me know in the comments down below on YouTube what you think the biggest reasons, if you want to order them, you can. The Pelicans lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers because I saw three that really jumped out at me and they're all kind of tied together. So certainly the team kind of came crashing back down to earth in this game after riding a 4-game winning streak where, and we've admitted this on Locked On Pelicans here, they were beating up on subpar competition. You play a good team and things crash a little bit hard. That said, this is more crashing down to earth than is normally going to happen. They were 4 for 22 from 3. More on the three-point shooting in a minute here. It's 18.1%, right? Like, that's not going to be the norm. You know, you had CJ go 0 for 5, Trey go 1 of 6, Najee go 1 of 5, right? Not great, but that's not normally how this is going to go. But what you see from that here is two sides to something, right? And I was talking to Gus Cattengill of ESPN Radio and on the Pelicans pre- and post-game show after the game. You know, after this game, Willie Green said it's about what the Cavaliers did to us. Well, then you need to adjust, right? You know, the shots obviously, clearly weren't falling. And you can sometimes like boil games down to, we can use cliches on this, right? Make or miss league. They missed a lot of shots. If those go in, this is an entirely different game. If CJ makes 2 threes, if Trey makes 2 more threes, right? That's 12 more points. That gets you in striking distance here in this game and makes it a lot closer and you can kind of go from there. The fact that basically they just shot as poorly as they did on no attempts either, 22 is horrific, right? You need to adjust. Shooting's important. So if guys, and we'll get into this part in a second too, won't take threes, make adjustments, right? If Trey Murphy's ice cold, if CJ is ice cold, put in Jordan Hawkins, who you just sent down to the G League and lit it up. Put in Matt Ryan and see if they can maybe kind of get some offense for you. The fact that the Pelicans scored under 100 points here with a healthy team is a is a concern. Under 100 is bad in the modern NBA, and we'll get into some other reasons why. The refs had something to do with this, and I want to get into that more in the third segment of today's show because Zion got hacked a lot, right? But that ties into this. Zion was getting hacked. I was sitting next to someone who works for the Cleveland Cavaliers during this game. And again, more on the refs later. But they kept saying to me, yeah, that's a foul, and the refs weren't calling anything. So if they were just packing the paint and doubling Zion, which they were for a lot of this game, putting guys that can at least beat that defense, break that defense. You don't space the court for Zion. Say it with me one more time with feeling if you're an everydayer of the show. You can't space the court for Zion Williamson. You need shooters to make them pay. I told that theory to the guy from the Cavs, and he fully agreed, right? Then put in shooters who are going to make shots, or guys who are willing to take shots, right? What have you got to lose here? Now, it's a bit of a rhetorical question because the Pelicans made this game close. In the third quarter, they got it within striking distance, I think 6 points, and then the Cavaliers just went on a run. So there is one thing for trusting the process over results. We say that a lot here on Locked On Pelicans, and I don't think it's incorrect, right? CJ's gotten you here. Trey Murphy has gotten you here. Do you mix up your rotation that much? Probably not the smart thing to do when you hope for regression to the mean. That can go either way, and here just would be dudes make shots. They didn't, you lose the game. Sometimes it's really that simple. But you had adjustments you could make, and this is what the coaching staff needs to try and thread this needle of trusting your guys, but also, okay, we are clearly not getting it done here. We need to do something as opposed to nothing because the Pelicans did nothing in this game. Let's go out and try and do it. For the first 3 quarters, they didn't score above 25 points, right? There's trusting the process and then just realizing regression to the mean isn't going to happen in this one. Let's put in Jordan Hawkins. Let's put in Matt Ryan and make an adjustment and see if it helps. Now, that didn't end up happening and the Pelicans lost. You could have made that adjustment and still lost too. But if that's what the end result is, maybe try it. But also, I get why you don't and why you stick with the process. That's what makes being a coach in the NBA hard. That kind of feel for the game, which is not something that we can quantify. There's not data around it, right? But that is something that it seems like at times, not always, but at times, the coaching staff is struggling with. One of the things I've said though, right? I don't want to see too many adjustments from them because what they're doing is working. If they lost because they were ice cold shooting, and that's one of the reasons they lost, and you could argue maybe the biggest reason they lost, like don't overreact to that in the moment and do something worse. But when you're down 20 points, yeah, like maybe put some more shooters in, right? Like maybe do that because with the Pelicans missing, the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to get out and run. They scored in this one 26 fast break points, right? That's how you beat this Pelicans team is get out in transition and run, and their defense doesn't get back, get set. Their half-court defense is good. No one, in my opinion, really plays good transition defense in the NBA, and the Pelicans were in that the majority of the night, and it's a big reason why they lost because of missed shots. And then when you're not making those shots, your defense can't get set, so the defense can't then go and force turnovers. The Cavaliers in this game had just 9 turnovers on the night. They made it easy for the Cleveland Cavaliers here. Now, they also made it easy because maybe this is just a bad matchup. The center position was a particular struggle for the Pelicans here. Let's talk about that. Let's break that down because this is something I'm worried about in the playoffs. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you versus the numbers. You pick more or less on the stat projection for 2 to 6 players, and you watch the winnings roll in. And now you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. You can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in under 60 seconds. And they have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. And it's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first time deposit match up to $100. Free money right there. When you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use promo code LockedOnNBA. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast, the #1 Pelicans podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join almost 10,000 other Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And we're here Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday. It's going to be a fun end to the season. The Pelicans are going to be into the playoffs. We're going to get to cover postseason games. We're going to break it all down like nobody else does. Subscribe. Tell a friend about the show too, right? Look, you're getting some insight from someone who works for the opponent here that I got to talk to all night. It's an important thing that you don't get anywhere else. So tell a friend about the show. Get them clued in to the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, if you're a baseball fan, you're going to love this. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, be the first to get the local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it March 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern, in the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Pelicans was on there the other day, by the way, or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. So let's get into why the Pelicans lost this game. Right? 3 big reasons, in my opinion. Some you can do things about, some you can't. Right? You could make more adjustments and put other shooters out there just to see if that unclogs things. More on that and the fouls and stuff for Zion Williamson in the third segment here. They didn't make those type of adjustments. Look, that's 50-50 if that would have helped at best. I understand trusting the process and process over results, so I don't fully want to blame Willie Green in this game, but you look at it and you're like, come on, 22 threes, right? Like, you need to do something. This is why in these games, you look at Brandon Ingram and it's like, dude, you got to take more threes. They desperately need it. 22 threes ain't going to cut it in today's NBA. Not when the Cavaliers took, how many do they take? They made 23s. The Pelicans made 4, right? 16 times 3. You can do the math on what the difference is there. They made 2 fewer threes than the Pelicans attempted. The Cavaliers took more than double the amount of three-point attempts here. You can say you hate the three-point shot, live and die by the 3. You don't want that. The Cavs did, and they won the game. You got to shoot more threes. It's really that simple here. So, another area they lost the game was the center position. In this game, there's some irony in this. You see why they wanted to trade for Jarrett Allen. You see why they wanted to move on from Jonas Valanciunas. Not necessarily because he's a bad player, though he was largely ineffective in this game, but also because he just doesn't fit and they don't use him in the way that they should. But the center position was rough for the Pelicans in this game. Between Jonas Valanciunas and Larry Nance Jr., they had a combined 5 points between the two players. This was not a good game for those guys. This was just not a good matchup for those guys because the Cleveland Cavaliers have Jarrett Allen who can play on the perimeter, can play on offense on the perimeter, doesn't shoot threes really, but can be an offensive threat out there, is a good pick and roll guy and rolling to the rim and doing things. And he just kind of ate the Pelicans alive with that. You know, they had no answer for him. What I find so interesting about this game, and this says something about Zion and wanting foul calls and all that too. Do you know how many free throw attempts the Cavaliers took? They didn't take any in the first half. I don't think they took any until the fourth quarter. They took 3 total free throw attempts in this game. They had 52 points in the paint. The Pelicans, by comparison, had 56 points in the paint, and they took 26 free throw attempts, right? Points in the paint, you're getting fouled because you're down low. You should go to the line more. That wasn't the case here because it was just Swiss cheese defense, and Jarrett Allen tore them up. Whether it was him in the pick and roll, whether it was just off-ball movement, killing the Pelicans and the ball getting passed around, they kept finding him, and he was just slipping his guy, getting wide open down low, and the Pelicans couldn't even contest it. They couldn't even contest it and send him to the line. They couldn't even contest it and send him on an and one because at least they were getting in his face. It was just easy dunks for him on the night. He took 2 of the Cavaliers' 3 free throws. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. But one of the things we've been concerned about, and the Pelicans were obviously concerned about this as well, is the center position. I've said, don't trade Jonas Valanciunas away this season. I stand by that. They didn't. I didn't want to see them get worse because he is a good player, underutilized here in New Orleans, underrated overall around the league, but a good player, right? It's as I've always said, it's like a breakup. It's not you, it's me. The Pelicans look at Jonas Valanciunas and go, you're a good player. It's not you. It's us. You don't fit. because he doesn't for them because of the way and what they want to do. And you saw it on the defensive side of the ball in this game. They went with Larry a lot. They started Larry in the second half. That didn't go any better for them, right? They have a center problem that can get exposed by good teams in the playoffs. Jonas will help win you regular season games. He's a good player. I've long said that. But in the postseason, I do worry that he's going to be a liability. Larry Nance Jr. has at times been really good for the Pelicans this season once he's been healthy, but is undersized at times. And so that's why you see the Cavaliers get offensive rebounds and things like that they shouldn't. And now the Pelicans limited those second chance points here. That was a really good thing that they did, but they weren't terminating possessions that they should. And we've seen that rear its ugly head at times. You go small with Larry Nance Jr., you're undersized, you're not going to get some of those boards. You go big with Jonas Valanciunas. You can get some of those defensive rebounds, but you're going to get pick and rolled to death on the defensive side of the ball. Pick your poison, and not in the good way for New Orleans here. The Cavs expose this because they have a big man that matches up particularly well. Against some big men, you'll be fine. Totally fine. Don't need to stress about it. Against a mobile big like that, this is why a matchup with a team like the Denver Nuggets is terrible. It's also why you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and a non-mobile big and Rudy Gobert, and you're like, yeah, this is fine. So when you see that here, it's not an ideal situation. And this is why I've said I do think that the center spot could be a big liability for the Pelicans in the postseason. And I think you saw it on full display right here against a good team who knew how to take advantage of that. It's not a great position to be in. Now, here's one when I said in the open, how do the Pelicans fix some of these problems? I don't have an answer for this one. Because I don't think one exists, right? Like Zion at the 5 minutes, if you go super small, hasn't been particularly great. It still runs into the defensive rebounding problem that you have with Larry Nance Jr. out there, right? Zion isn't particularly great of a defender. He struggles on the perimeter a little bit as well. You had Niang for the Cavaliers go 4 of 8 because he had space and could shoot. That's not a great position to be in. So what's the answer? The answer, look, as much as I've loved Cody Zeller this season, isn't it? Jeremiah Robinson-Earl is in the same boat, undersized, as Larry Nance Jr. I just don't think the answer is on this roster to this problem. I think this is just one that, like, you got to pray for the right matchup. If you get that, you'll be okay. If you don't, the center position is going to kill you in the postseason. And that's okay. That is okay. One of the things I've said I want to see this team doing that I think they know they're trying to do is get into the postseason. Whatever happens, happens. And then you have the data you need of like, yeah, we really got to make a change at center position. Or Brandon Ingram and Zion don't work together. We need to make a change there. Or CJ didn't show up in the postseason. Maybe we need to look at moving him a little bit as well. So all of those are kind of on the table, but just know for sure because we haven't seen this team in the playoffs with Zion at all. At least you'll get that. So I understand not making a move at center, even if it might hurt you in the postseason, because one, you got to get there. Look, what good is making a move at center if you don't get to the postseason in the first place? And Jonas Valanciunas, I think, helps you get to the postseason, and I think will help you get the 5th seed or 4th seed. Game against the Clippers on Friday, massive, even bigger now after losing this game. So we'll see what they end up doing here, but I don't think there's an answer on the roster for this sort of thing. Not this year. You better fix it going into next season. If they extend JV and keep him, you still have a problem here. But they definitely need to do something about the center spot because you've had some stinkers of games there, and it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Maybe not in the first round, but in the second round, conference finals, it's going to be a problem later in the postseason. And that's something that you've got to try and figure out next season because there ain't anything you can do about it this season. And I'm okay with that. I think we've just got to accept that this is the case. And I still think they made the right move not trading Jonas Valanciunas at the NBA's trade deadline. All right, let's get into the interesting thing. Well, it's all interesting. This one's also, what can you do? There's some things, the refs and Zion Williamson, and a lack of calls. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I want to tell you about Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, a no-cap 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to 401ks and IRAs. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast. We cover it all here, whether it's insight from the individual games, whether it's looking towards the playoffs, looking at the roster. We cover it all. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join one of almost the 10,000 of y'all Pelicans fans on YouTube. Comment down below as well. What do you think was the big reason for the loss here? Shout out Daryl Big D, who I was talking to a bunch at the game. It was just fun seeing everybody at the game. I don't know. It's fun being in the Smoothie King Center, and I enjoyed that tremendously here. And become an everydayer. Listen, Monday through Friday. We are Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So here's another problem. And this one's tough. This one's tough. Zion Williamson got to the line 9 times. That's a good number. However, he should have been at the line way more. He should have been at the line way more than what we saw. So one thing that a lot of other NBA people, writers, bloggers, podcasters are looking at right now is there is a decline in offense since January 1 and also since the free throw line. Mark Stein in his newsletter talked about it. I've seen talked about it. Tom Haberstroh has also talked about it, and others. It's a very real thing that you can see with the data here. The NBA is claiming it's just a blip. It's an anomaly. Don't worry too much about it. But the general kind of consensus from this is the league, the refs, are calling fewer fouls, fewer shooting fouls, things like that. Guys not getting to the line as much. Zion Williamson was asked about it after the game, and his quote was basically, that he says, refs and calls, if I had to take a guess, they're getting ready for playoffs. They say in the playoffs, a lot of those calls people aren't going to get. Basically, they're calling it tighter, and they are. Right? They're basically calling, and Zion's dead on with this. The refs are calling games like a playoff game where you just let it be a little bit more physical. You don't want it to turn into like a free throw shooting contest competition or anything like that. That is absolutely happening in the league. But for a guy like Zion, that's a problem. That's a problem. That hinders his game. 9 attempts is good. He should have been at the line like 15 times in this one. Right? I was sitting courtside for this game. You could hear it there. It's a different experience down low. You hear and see the contact so much more. Talking to the Cavaliers guy, every time that you hear it, right? Like it's something like that, and you hear that and you see it, and you're like, oh, that's a foul. Multiple times this game, he's like, that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a foul. And I just kind of laugh, and he's like, look, man, like I'll call him as I see him. Like that's a foul. The refs aren't going to call it. Like, you got to deal with it, but that's definitely a foul. Zion not getting the line, it hurts. It hurts, right? The Pelicans were in the bonus in the first quarter. Any foul is going to send them to the line there. And then they just stopped getting calls. I was like, again, this comes down to I don't know what to tell you other than, the Pelicans are sending clips in probably after every game, right? Every team kind of does that. The NBA, I don't think really cares or pays that much attention to it. But this is something that's starting to get kind of publicity around the league, in media and all of that. That can maybe help, I think, a little bit with some of this. But in general, like, how do you adjust, right? This goes back into the first segment here. If you're not going to get those calls, right, can you go into the paint as much, or does Zion need to spray it out to shooters? And if he's going to do that, you need those shooters to make shots. So if they're not, maybe you need to sub those guys in, right? See how the show comes together full circle like that as we somewhat start to wrap it up? this is where we're going to get a real true test of Zion. And I don't think this is like something outside of his control, right? I don't think him shooting a jumper or a mid-range is going to be truly a better option than him trying to go to the rim and playing through contact. This one, he was playing through it. That's been definitely a thing. When we did the whole show on Zion should go to the line more, it was like maybe 1, 2, 3 max more times per game. He should have gone to the line like 6 more times in this game, right? Part of it is he hasn't played through contact nearly like he should or tried to sell some of these calls. Selling the calls is one thing, right? But playing through contact's the big one, right? Don't look like you just bounce off dudes and go away from it. It's like, well, then that's not on them. That's kind of on you. Here, he was fighting through it and getting hacked. And they just weren't going to call it whatsoever. And I don't know whether it's on Willie Green to get it. Like, I know a lot of people want to see Willie Green stand up and get a technical and get fined $25,000 or do the Rudy Gobert, right? Making the money sign at refs, getting fined $100,000. That's not going to accomplish anything, right? Like, I don't think that's going to actually help the Timberwolves get the calls that they want. So that $100,000 is just wasted unless you just need the tax write-off, which is what it is. You know, Willie Green getting fined? No, let him keep his money. There's no reason for him to do that because honestly, it won't do anything. Getting ejected in a game, I think that's a little bit more reasonable. And maybe you kind of plan on that and just chew out one of the refs. One that probably feels good. We do the better help ads here, right? Sometimes you just got to get things off your chest. And maybe him just screaming at some of the refs would be a really good thing for him to do here. But overall, like, they need to do something, and I don't exactly know what that option is, and they got to figure it out because this has been absolutely brutal. In this game, you could really, really see that Zion Williamson needed to go to the line more. Really needed to go to the line more. They've got to figure this out because when you get into the postseason, if he's not getting those calls, that hurts this team. Hurts this team. The starters are still clunky, right? They were clunky in this game in the first half, in the start of the third. And if you can get easy points at the free throw line, figuring out where your offense is going to come from, it can come from the free throw line, but you got to get the calls to do that. The Pelicans should be getting those calls. Absolutely, without a doubt, should be getting those calls. They're not. What do you do? Do you make adjustments? Do you put more shooters out there and just say, okay, we're not going to go into the paint as much. We're going to shoot more threes, though that kind of negates an advantage that you have. But is it an advantage if you're not getting calls? You see how hard this is? If you're a head coach, it's not easy. It's not easy. Give Willie Green a little bit of a break with all of this. What would you do? I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube or on Twitter at NolaJake. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NolaJake on Twitter. We are the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and we'll be back tomorrow to get you set for 2 games over the weekend.